All right, showtime.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
How's it going?
Okay.
Yeah. So tell me about this. Tell me about this performance art you were telling me about.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to I'm still thinking about it. There's those protesters in Portland, Oregon, and there's also federal police beating them up, and so there's a really it's kind of like a scary times. I mean, it's like every moment is like something else is unfolding. So what intrigued me, she's called the Athena, Naked Athena, I think. And so what she did, a performance artist, stripped naked and plopped herself in front of the protesters, kind of protecting them. And then there were the police. She was full throttle, you know what I mean? Like naked and completely vulnerable. So what came to my mind is like, how does performance art affect protests, and how did it affect the police also? Actually, after 10 minutes, they left. So obviously it did something. So
Yeah. Okay. So you're sort of tossing around the question, like, what happens when you combine performance art with a protest?
yeah.
Yeah. So right. So I read the articles that I could find about Naked Athena, and basically what I'm gathering is that well, okay, so today is the 55th day that there will be protests in Portland.
Wow.
In consecutive.
Wow.
I believe it was, what was it, 5 to 7 days ago, President Trump sent in unidentifiable federal agents to quote unquote get control of the city.
Yeah.
Most of the people that live in Portland have been sharing photographs of Portland to show that there's actually only a 2-block area is getting, well, actually where the protests are happening. Protests are happening in a 2-block radius. And yes, people are vandalizing that 2-block area and possibly other neighborhoods, but those are not the protesters. Those happen after 90% of the protesters go home.
Yeah.
Obviously, this could turn into a conversation about how the media covers things, and there seems to always be 2 different stories going around. But anyway, I'm proud of people living in Portland that are trying to communicate that they are not afraid to live there, that they support the protesters, and that it's not okay to randomly kidnap people off the street, no matter what they're doing, because we in the United States.
Yeah.
So on top of all of that, to see a photograph of a woman, basically a knit cap on, full throttle naked, sitting on the street with her legs out like this, is very powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's powerful because she's a woman, and I think it's powerful because she's naked, and I think it's powerful because she was basically completely vulnerable. Like, so what the parts that I read was basically that the federal agent shot rubber bullets at her feet. That's right. Where if you look at any other event with the federal agents, they've been shooting people in the head and them down the street.
Yeah.
And like you said, they stood there for 10 minutes and then they walked away. And then she stayed for another, 5 to 10 minutes, and then she left. Nobody knows yet who she is. And yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you don't know what to do, so you don't do anything. I feel like she was a pause, which she was like pressing the pause button, which I think we need to do right now. I really do. I really need to press the pause button. And yeah, I think that I think it's powerful as a form of protest, because it's almost like she's making the federal agents have to come to terms with what they're doing, in a way, in a more like in your face way, because she's so vulnerable.
Yeah, what I took it as, I mean, it's symbolic beyond belief. A couple things come up. She really put herself in danger, meaning if if they didn't pause, like you said, and she could have been raped. You don't know. I mean, that just to be that vulnerable, that comes up for me when there's a militia of troops right there, and
Right.
she's just like, totally vulnerable, and then they don't know what to do. So it's like, but then it also came up for me that it's really like um, really a statement against the patriarchy, which those militia federal police officers are looking like. You know what I mean? Complete patriarchy. You got to squash people. You got to oppress them. And so here you have like a matriarchy form, and it's so fascinating because in ancient Irish art, she's called a shinnig or something like that, but she has that same posture. So for me, there's so many layers. It's like matriarchy, you know what I mean? And then there's also like, I'm fighting against the oppression of the patriarchy. I'm also very vulnerable. Like, I mean, she was very brave.
Yeah.
Who knows what it could happen? And then another thing is, I mean, the imagery is so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, it just sticks in your mind. But then you're kind of like, then you don't know what to do with it as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. I think that I do think that some people will just toss it off as some rando crazy lady, sort of off her, going nutso, right? Speaking of how media will spin it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, with art, you can interpret it however you want to interpret it. But I do think that the images created because of the performance are as important as the performance itself, right? Because you and I were not there.
Right.
You and I we don't have a firsthand account of what happened. We only have the interviews that we can read with I read an article, basically the Oregonian interviewed one of their photographers because he ended up just randomly being at this place at the right time, and he took most of the photographs that are being shared. He was about to go home. He said that this woman just showed up, and so he started photographing her. And what I found really interesting is that a protester, I think it might have been at the moment that the federal agents were putting rubber bullets at her feet, a protester came up with a shield and blocked her, and she actually unblocked herself from that protester. And that's a very powerful message.
Yeah.
Basically, like, to me, she does. I can't stop thinking of the fact that she's not a protester and she's not a federal agent. She's this thing. She's this thing that's in between the two of them.
Okay.
That's what it feels like to me. Because if you think of the average protester, they're marching, they're shouting, they're holding a sign, they're spitting, they're angry, rightfully so. That's their right to do that. It's the right to yell. It's the right to say what they feel, because we have that freedom in our country, which is an amazing freedom. And so that's your average protest. And then she comes in and she's not doing any of those things. And so she doesn't feel like she's part of that line of people, right? And she's definitely not on the side of the federal agents because she was facing the federal agents, So she feels almost like a middle person. And that's why I say pause button. But that's definitely a personal bias, because I think we all need to just pause for a minute and take some deep breaths and do some yoga. That's what she's doing. Take some long poses and get to a point where we can see what we're doing. You know what I mean?
I'm okay.
So we can kind of open our eyes to what is going on. So
Yeah.
I had a question that I thought of, but I lost it. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I love what you're sharing because that's what art does. It's like everybody has a different perspective on it, and that's what the beauty of art is. And I really like what you shared because she wasn't a protester. The protesters they have big feelings, right? Big feelings, and then you have these police who also have big feelings because they're beating up people that are innocent, and then you have this. Right, she's like she could be an angel on some level. She could be like just walking in and yes, like look at me. I'm not you. I'm not you,
Right.
but I'm a human, and I'm vulnerable. And if you think about it, when a baby is a naked little baby, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
we're all freaked out about not having clothes on, but the truth of I love it. So she like really said we're human. We're all humans. Because I think
I think that's right. That's the thing is that like, it's kind of like that. Yeah. So we're unpacking this. When you shed all of yourself,
right.
we're not all the same. I'm not making that argument, but we are all vulnerable. We're all, and that's what it is that like, to me, it feels like this, like we're all vulnerable to this. This is not something that is an individual thing, right? Like I hope, and it seems like she did, she made these federal agents kind of pause again and and think about their actions. I would like to know, like I wish someone would interview them, but they probably are in hiding somewhere and we don't know who they are or anything. But like what's going on inside their minds? Like if you imagine being in their position, so they're basically being sent a certain message, right? That is probably the opposite of the protesters.
Right.
These protesters are tearing apart a city, and your job is to get this city back into order, to save the citizens of those cities. So these federal agents are going in thinking, okay, I'm fighting the bad guy. I'm going to help. I'm going to fight this bad guy. And they're creating this sense of other. Protesters, same thing is happening. I'm protesting an idea. I have the right to do this. Definitely have the right to do that. And this wall of others blocking me from doing what I have the right to do. And so there's this sense of like, the sense of other. We talk about the other all the time, right? How bad it is when you start to view, especially human beings, as others. And so I feel like Naked Athena floats in there and is like, hey, guess what? You may think that this person is an other, but we're all vulnerable to the actions that everybody here decides to take. Mm-hmm. If the federal agents decide to take action and, swoop people into vans in America, that's against everything that America is for. And so they're taking vulnerable people and they're just shattering them. They're shattering. I don't, they're
dehumanizing, right?
Right. They're taking that part out of it. And she feels like Naked Athena is trying to bring that back in, right? Which is like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an intense situation. And I think that, it was, I guess, I don't know. I mean, how many people do you think are viewing it as performance art?
I don't think many. That's why I was curious, because when I looked it up as well, there was only maybe 5 articles about it. And basically, I mean, it's a gorgeous shot. The photographer took a beautiful shot. He was the witness of it, basically. I mean, that's what journalists are. They're witnessing what's going on. They're not the other either. They're not the protesters or the cops, but they are being beat up in America. So I would say I I would love to talk to her to see what, what were her thoughts. But I don't know. I think probably artists would think it's performance art. A lot of people don't understand performance art. Sometimes I don't understand performance art.
Yeah.
So we'd have to talk to Maria, what's her name? Maria Abramovich.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because in the history of protest art, nudity has been, it has a role in it. You know what I mean? The vulnerability of performance art is like.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I as artists are at that point of realizing that, of how vulnerable she is when she does that.
Right.
I'm curious if other people will believe that it was just a means of shock and attention grabbing.
Well,
and if you look at it from that angle, is that a problem? I still don't think, like, even if you take the vulnerable aspect out of it, just the sort of the shock of it, I think is important, because it got everybody to stop for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That night was unlike the preceding nights.
Right.
Everybody, we don't know what she stopped, but she stopped something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's kind of a big question, and there's a lot to unpack, because we don't know enough, as you say. But what I do love is, yes, she stopped it. She stopped whatever it was, and people did pause. Everybody paused. Somebody tried to protect her, and she's like, "No, I'm doing this. You're not. This is my art. I'm doing something." So yeah, it's like, it's fascinating. Protest art. Yeah, I don't like it's hard, because some part of me doesn't know what to think. Because I think, but also, that's what you're speaking. What we're not dealing with is all the trauma that's going on.
Yeah.
Just for the protesters to stand up, and they're angry, and and they're peaceful, right? But then actually to get beat up by a federal police person, I mean, and like have your arm broken. Like, I saw, like, not just a little beat up, I mean, literally, like, whacked a million times. So collectively, there's a huge trauma, and then for her to go out there naked like a baby, it's for me, it's a symbol. I think, remember, we were talking a couple podcasts ago about a symbol for the pandemic. There needs to be a symbol, and she could become a symbol for, what's going on between these two groups of people.
Yeah, I think that she could be a symbol for what's happening among the entire United States, right? Because it is extremely divisive, and we will not survive if we keep going in that direction. And I think that, if you look what's going on, if you just take Portland, just Portland on its own, you have two different narratives going on. I'm sure there's more than two, but the two main ones are people exercising their right to freedom of speech, and then another group saying you're messing up the city. Like, that's two very, very different things, right?
Yeah, but then you're going to add to that. I don't know when now there's moms protesting. I mean,
yes, right.
That's huge, and then you got to think about, they're singing, like, chanting, like, things, and they're locking arms together, and so something we could assume that maybe when the moms saw that naked lady, like a naked baby, they're like, we got to get out here and we got to protect the protest.
Yes, the moms have been going on for a while, because it was basically since George Floyd. It was, it's the idea that all moms heard George Floyd when he called out for his mother before he died. And so that, I mean, it's a very powerful thing, because that's one of the last things he said, is he called out for his mom. That's extremely powerful when you think about that. Whether you're a mother or not, it doesn't matter. And so, you know, so a lot of moms have basically come out to, and a lot of white moms have come out to basically create a wall in front of Black protesters, brown protesters, people of color, you know, to protect them from police and federal agents, whoever is on the street. And but what I want to get at is basically maybe the power of this performance art is the fact that maybe she'll open up people's minds to the fact that that we need to find a way to all be vulnerable. Because if we're not, if we keep, because like, I don't know, symbolically, I think of like, you have a protest wall and then you have an agent wall, and it's just these two walls that are just like,
yeah,
it's gonna keep crashing
right.
with each other. You know, and I think that I think, you know, and I feel like we have that happening regardless of the protesting. I feel like people are building walls of that other people can't basically climb over to have a conversation. And I think that if we want to progress to some sort of common ground, we all need to be a little bit more like Naked Athena. We need to be more willing to be uncomfortable, to have those uncomfortable conversations, to move on together, you know.
Yeah. Because
like I don't know, I'm just that I have that type of personality that's trying to always look at the world from every perspective. Like I look at these federal agents and I'm like, why in the world would they be there?
Yeah.
Why in the world they think it's okay grab someone and put them in a van? Like, I can't. So all I can come up with in my head is that they've been told a different story.
Yeah.
No way they would do that if they knew the real story. I just can't, I don't think anybody would. They told a story of like these, and I can't, you know, I don't know.
Well, what you're alluding to is like, they're in a, what's that called? The group mind. So yeah. It's like, if you go to war or if you enlist to go to the war and normally you would kill somebody, you kill somebody, right? Yeah. Because you have been trained. And so these guys have been trained, they've been conditioned. Yes. And so obviously it's a different story because they're conditioned to break it down, right? Break it. Right. Break the energy, break it, just like break the life out of it. That's what they're there. And it's like beating a dog until it submits, you know what I mean? That's what they're trying to do to the group of protesters.
Right.
And so, but I really like what you said about being vulnerable. I too think in these times we are building walls, and like we should be more vulnerable because because a lot of people are dying, and you know we're all in this together. But I think something is going on within the American psyche that's like, you know, it's you and me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, And now we have nothing in common. But I think that's where Naked Athena came in. I think she is the bridge.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think she's symbolic of so many things right now. Like this word vulnerable that you keep that we keep just because it's such a powerful word, but we're vulnerable in a lot of different ways. We are actually currently vulnerable as a society. You know, that's what she represents to me. She is us right now as a whole. Right. We are barely armed, right? We're not like, we're in trouble. We're in trouble mentally, we're in trouble health-wise, we're in trouble economically, right? Everything's been taken off of us. We have no more armor, right? That's where we are as a society. That's what she represents to me. Right. But at the same time, she's basically like, we need to shed all of our sort of bias and our preconceived notions, and we as an individual need to be vulnerable in order to heal.
Yeah.
Because if we can't do that, right, and that's the don't build these walls, take them down, but don't take them down by smashing people in the freaking face. Take them down brick by brick by having a conversation with the human standing right across from you. Like that's, she does, she means a lot. I think she, you know, and unfortunately, as you can tell, I have a beef with media right now. She's going to be portrayed as some loony when she could represent so much more.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we're talking about it today, because I think maybe people need to realize or awaken to the possibility that it was a performance piece and she did do a lot. And I mean,
a lot more to think about.
A lot more to think about, but we'd love to know what you all think about Naked
Definitely.
Athena, and tell us what you think and your thoughts. And
definitely,
we got to get that quote by Brene Brown about vulnerability.
Definitely. Okay, we'll share that in the description link, and of course to all the articles and stuff.
You know, art does make you vulnerable, but art also makes you heal. And so
yes, that's the most amazing thing, right? Is that like it's a feedback loop, right? It's like when you make art, you are in the midst of being vulnerable. When you share your art,
you're naked.
Ask anybody. That's why a lot of people don't share it, right? Is because, and everybody describes it, that you're like, it's like you're standing in front of a room naked,
right?
And everybody is telling you, is basically kind of dissecting you as a physical human and a mental human and an emotional human, and just kind of putting it all out there for you. But if you don't do that, you don't heal. Right. You won't heal. You'll destroy yourself.
Right.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that right. I mean, like there's another symbol that it represents, right? Is that she is art. She represents what art is, right? It's basically shedding everything that you pretend is what you need and finding who you really are, and then talking to you, right? So that you can deal with being human.
Deal with the trauma, deal with the craziness, right?
Totally. Yeah. And it's a magical thing. I like it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.